attributes of our life and different relationships with people and how those relationships are different from person to person. For instance, we have a different kind of relationship with our friends than we do with our family, correct? We have a different kind of a relationship with our siblings than we have with our parents, correct? And yet God has a plan and a role in all of those relationships of our life. And our goal is to be able to live our life and love each of those people the way that He asks us to. And love is kind of an interesting thing. It has an overall definition. Again, we've been reading it, and we're actually going to read it again tonight. But 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 7 is one of my favorite scriptures. So I won't jump ahead, but it tells you what love is. At the same point, love looks different from person to person. And it's the reason why we as people get so caught up with how to love other people. Because when we get hurt by somebody, again, we have differences. When we get hurt by a friend, sometimes it's cool. Because then we can just walk away and we don't have to see that person anymore. We live in hatred of them. We might live in unforgiveness of them. If we do see them, we might have this feeling come up like, oh my God, they're here? I can't believe they're here. I just want to go slap them and watch their heads spin in circles. You know, whatever you might feel with that person, but you don't have to see them anymore. Family members, when family members hurt you, you're with your family members all the rest of your days, to some degree or level. You're stuck with them. And I guess there can come a place, but the whole goal is even if you have people in your life that treat you like you're dirt, how do you still love them? And that's why love is kind of a finicky thing, because we kind of tie love and trust and forgiveness and all of those things together, and all of those things are separate. All of those things are separate, okay? You guys listening? You with me? A lot of you, when you hear me say it's time for you to love somebody like you've never loved them before. It's time for you, that person that's hurt you in life, it's time for you to love that person. All you hear is it's time for you to trust that person, and it's time for you to fully forgive that person. Here's the thing, love comes from Christ, and Christ loves you no matter what you've done to Him. And quite frankly, each of us has fallen short of the glory of God, so all of you are responsible for driving a nail into Jesus Christ. All of you are responsible for whipping Him. All of you are responsible for watching Him and laughing at Him while He was on the cross, because each of us has sinned in this place. All have fallen short of the glory of God. I have to live with my choices, and I've slapped Christ again and again in my life. And I'm getting to a place where I'm tired of it, and I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to fall more in love with Him. And part of doing that is choosing to love people no matter what they've done to me. And the other part of doing that is choosing to forgive those that have hurt me. But here's where we get mixed up, is we throw trust in the mix. And what I want to speak very briefly, because this isn't the message tonight, but trust doesn't have anything to do with forgiveness and love. Trust is an entirely different thing. Okay, so we're going to ask about these different things. We started with love. Okay, Faith got to preach with me on love. Thank you for that, Faith. It was amazing. You can give her a hand. Being able to love the way that Christ loves us is one of the most important factors of our life to live for Him. Okay? The next one was family. And family sometimes can be the hardest to love, because you are stuck with them for life to some degree or level. Even if you've been pulled out of a biological family and placed in another family, that other family is influencing you right now. Their influence you carry for the rest of your life, but at the same point in time, you don't have to carry it at the forefront like as some sort of a badge that was forced on you. When there's negative things that have happened, you've got to understand there's God's will and there's the enemy's will. God didn't design us to be hurt and spit on and beaten through our lives. And yet many of us in this room are or have been. But God designed us for love. And God designed us for peace. And God designed us so that we could simply walk through a garden that's beautiful and just be with Him in His presence. That was His whole intention. And the enemy has so twisted what God's original plan was, and he's gotten into our minds and lied to us and told us that we're someone we were never supposed to be. I'm telling you guys tonight, as we talk about tonight's subject, we went from love with Faith preaching with me, and then Bryn got to preach with me on family last week. Thank you, Bryn. You can give her a hand. And tonight we're going to talk about our friendships, because here's the thing, you guys. Our friendships are next to that of family. Who we choose to be friends with is also going to influence who we become in life if we let it. Or, I'm not saying that your friends aren't going to influence you no matter what, because they are, but at the same point in time, those same friends don't have to influence your identity. And that's the other place we get mixed up, is many times what we do is we look at our own identity and we base it off of what that one person did to us and how they betrayed us or how they... And we don't have to look at it that way. People are people. You guys you have families, and you're going to have probably quite a few friends through your life as you go through. Sometimes it may not feel like it in junior high and high school, but I promise you as you get out of high school, you'll find that it gets easier to make friends. I don't know why that happens that way. Maybe it's the maturity level. I don't know what it is. But you guys are going to find you're going to have many friends through life, and those friends are going to influence you in one way or another, or you can influence them. I heard it put this way one time. I thought it was really, really good. What does a thermometer do? Tells you the temperature. Tells you the temperature, right? What does a thermostat do? It changes the temperature. So here's what you can be as a friend. Instead of being a thermometer that takes the temperature of a person, oh, that person's really nice, I'll be friends with them. We'll be friends forever. Instead of that, why don't you be a thermostat and say, I hope that they're a good friend to me, but I'm going to be a good friend to them no matter what they do. All of a sudden, you just change the temperature of that friendship and that relationship forever because you chose to be the bigger person. Now, does that become tiresome and frustrating and unfair? Absolutely, it does. But what do we do to Him every day? We make it unfair because we choose sin and we choose worldly things over Him all the time. We are the ones that chose sin. And because of that, now we are paying the ultimate consequence, which is separation from God the Father. And God the Father didn't like that, so He gave us Christ. And now the goal has become live our life the way that Christ lived His. Without any further ado, I'd like to invite a young man, Aaron Rennie, is going to come up here. Aaron and I are going to kind of pass the mic back and forth with each other to preach this message. I'm going to give you guys through this, listen up, I'm going to give you guys kind of my personal story and some of my friendships I went through school, and Aaron's going to preach this message to you guys. So without any further ado, Aaron Rennie.
Okay, so with real relationships, before we can start talking about real friendships, we need to figure out what is a friend and why do we need friends. The dictionary says a friend is a person whom one knows and with whom one has a bond of mutual affection, typically excluding family or from any other relations. This is important because it tells us that to be a friend, you need to know a person, not just know of them. And so this means that you can know of a person as I can know of a celebrity, I can know what they look like, but to truly know the person and what they're truly like in the inside is very different. And it also shows that you need to have a like, connection, and affection, and to be and to have a friend. Because unlike family, being a friend is a choice and is not a have to. Now, why do we need a friend? We need to understand that we, as humans, are social creatures. And obviously we need to socialize. And so when people don't socialize and don't really have friendship, they grow crazy and they grow distant. That's why people in solitary confinement, or people that have been out in like the woods or something, like where they've been really far away from people, are generally more distant, they're harder to talk to, and they seem to have more quirks. We also need to know that humans live and strive to be loved. And what a friend does is they will love you at all times, and that is something as a human what we need. Remember some definitions of love that Paul gave us a couple weeks ago is: love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous, slow to anger, not proud, not self-seeking, forgiving. It rejoices in truth and always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. We need friends in our lives so that we have someone that chooses to be there instead of has to be there.
Yeah.
We also need to be friends to choose to be there for others, so when we don't have to. Proverbs 18:24 uses the word sticks. That a friend that sticks closer than a friend sticks closer than a brother. Proverbs 18:24 says, one who has a unrelatable friend soon comes to ruin, but a friend sticks closer than a brother. In the New King James Version, it says, a man who has friends must be friendly himself. And it says, you know that God loves you, but we need to continue to strive on a daily basis to be more like Christ.
Yeah.
So tonight, let's learn how we can grow and what we can do to build real friendships. Remember, it can be tough to be friends with people that you don't have same interests or that you simply don't agree with. Well, tonight, as we talk about friendships, we're going to look at what things we can do. It's natural for us to think that the other person needs to change, that it's not me, it's not my problem, it's the other person's problem, that it's always their fault and they're the reason that we're not being good friends. But I challenge you to focus on yourself. The only person you can truly change is yourself, and we could all definitely use an improvement. Okay, so this is a disclaimer. I'm not connected to these people, and I am not either for or against this group of people, and I don't want to get beat up in the parking lot, so if you feel offended, take it up with this guy. Okay.
Thanks a lot for that.
Well, yeah, if they're going to beat you up in the parking lot, I mean, at least, you can fight back. Okay, it says, so, have you guys ever heard of the Red Pill Society, or mainly a Red Pill Reddit? So basically it's a matrix, so what a Red Pill Reddit is it's a matrix reference because basically a summary is a blue pill was like you would stay in your reality, or the red pill is you know truth. And so what these Red Pill Society people do is they make memes about, or basically mostly men that make memes about what they feel is unjust in the world. And so they give us a perfect example of what it's like to want a great friend but not being a good friend ourselves. Because, for example, they give us this meme saying, girls be like, I want a perfect guy that's 6 feet tall that has a six-pack and makes 6 figures or more. And then they're like, yo, dude, what you like? And they're like, yo, dude, I'm like 5'2" in a circle. So this is, and even though that most perspectives of this say that's a bit cruel, it shows us how we look when we want a perfect friend, but when ourselves aren't one. And during and after the story, Pastor Colton we will learn what a great and not so great friend is.
You guys can give him a hand if you would like to. He's doing a great job. If it makes you feel better, my friend, I'm 5'8" in a circle, so. And
I mean, you're not really.
And I still got married.
Okay.
Is it okay?
He's like,
it's in here that counts.
I can't fix you, man. I can only fix myself.
He just said he can't fix me. I have no hope. All right. So I have I kind of want to give you guys some examples, especially if you're in like 6th, 7th grade. This story starting out is probably going to help you guys just know what you can do to make essentially a stake in the ground that says, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to serve Jesus all of my life, even if it means I go through some lonely times. Okay? Let me ask you this. Did God intend for us to walk through lonely times? Not at first. At first, He intended to have absolute closeness with us. But then when there was separation for us, what did we choose? Loneliness. Unfortunately, we chose separation from the Lord. And when we chose separation from the Lord, we chose loneliness. Okay? So, let me tell you guys some of my story as far as the way that my friendships with. When I was in elementary school, I had this guy. I always hung out with the band and choir geeks. Those are my people. Okay? I love the band and choir geeks because I was a band geek in junior high, and then I was a choir geek when I was in high school. Okay? So, and just kind of those people that were, I guess you could say, outcasted or whatever. Those are my people. The ones that were really, really nice, that were usually really quiet, that, you know, you could usually talk to them and discover they go to church somewhere, they're just being incredibly quiet because they don't want to say anything, because every time they say something, somebody tells them they're stupid. That's what I felt anyways. So I had a buddy like that, and he and I were, I'll tell you what, nuts. We were nuts. Indescribably nuts. Not your typical 6th and 7th graders, like we made them look calm. Okay? I was above and beyond the call of duty as a 6th and a 7th grader. I even carried it into my freshman and sophomore year. I'm very proud of myself for that. Although I look back on it and question some of my choices, I had fun. So, but I had this buddy, and then we got to junior high in 7th grade, and we were just best friends. We hung out all the time. We talked, we laughed with each other, we joked around, we goofed off. And that continued through 7th grade until about the end. Okay? Somewhere around the middle to the end of 7th grade, all of a sudden, this guy that was my best friend, and then the whole group of friends that we met when we got to junior high, stopped inviting me to stuff. They just kind of ditched me a little bit, okay? And so here I am, I'm in 7th grade, I'm not knowing what's going on, so I finally confront my friend after a while, like not in a confronting way, like, you're an idiot, but like a nice way, like a friendly way, like, bro, like, I've noticed that you don't ask me to hang out with you anymore, and I'm just curious, what's the deal? Here's what he told me. Colton, I want you to know I love you with all my heart. That's what he said. I love you, man. You're one of the good ones, and I'm protecting you. What does that even mean? He's like, I just got to be open with you, bro. Me and all the guys started smoking weed and hanging out, and you're one of the good ones, dude. We don't want you to end up like us. I'm like, well, that's great, bro, but now I don't have any friends, so thanks a lot for that, I guess. So they quit inviting me to stuff because they started kind of diving into the party life. Okay? And I didn't know how to take that at first. So I move on from there. I'm pretty lonely through 8th grade, and then I get toward the end of 8th grade, and all of a sudden I meet a buddy here at church. Family started. Guy was my age, and again, that's the reason why my freshman and sophomore year I still probably looked and acted much like a 6th and a 7th grader. It was fun. I enjoyed my life, okay? Along with this gentleman that became my very, very good friend. His name was Zach. And we also had some other buddies at church here. And we started kind of a group of 5 guys and burgers and fries. And, wait a second. But seriously, it was 5 of us, and we were crazy, dude. We did everything together. We rode bikes together. We played all kinds of video games. We made a potato gun together. What? It's just legit, bro. We just shoot potatoes. We launched these things probably 450, 500 yards. I don't recommend it.
Did you use propane?
Shh. I'm not telling you how I made a potato gun with my friends, because it was very dangerous, and we tried to shoot each other with it because we're millennials, and millennials had issues, okay? But we had a blast. We did everything together. And then all of a sudden, about midway through sophomore year, these guys quit inviting me over. They kind of started avoiding me again. And part of the reason they started avoiding me is because out of both of these groups of friends, these people knew that I made a choice that I'm not going to let anybody influence me. I'm going to be who I'm going to be, and you don't get to decide who I am. But I want to hang out with you because I don't want to be alone. Seriously, I want friends. I'm a normal human. So I have these friends, and then all of a sudden, because they know I'm not willing to budge on my standards and who I want to be as a Christian young man that wants to become a pastor at some point so that I can change the world, or at least my part of it, my whole goal was to do the best that I could in life. And so these guys stopped inviting me because they started making choices that they knew I wasn't going to make, because the choices they were making were going to ruin what I wanted. They were going to ruin what I needed to do with my life. And so all of a sudden I confronted some of these guys again. I said, "What's the deal, guys? How come I don't get invited to stuff anymore?" And they said, "Bro, we think you're awesome and stuff, but at the same point, like, we don't want you to end up where we're at. And we know you're not going to go there anyways. So we started drinking and going to parties and stuff like that. And we know that you're not going to be a part of that." I said, "Well, you're right, but that kind of sucks. Now I'm outed." So I walked through a period of loneliness for a short time in 8th grade. Then got a really awesome group of friends, or so I thought. And then all of a sudden they kind of ditched me and did their own thing, started living for the world. And here I am alone again, making a choice for God instead of what they want. They're sleeping around with their girlfriends, they're going to parties, they're drinking, they're smoking weed, they're doing all the stuff that I'm not going to do because I want to represent Christ to the best of my ability, not just for other people, but especially for them. What ended up happening through this, you guys, is I got to my senior year and finally got a best friend. Okay, so I went almost like a year and a half or two pretty well alone. I wasn't totally alone. There was a lot of girls that were my friends. That's not safe. I don't recommend it. Surefire way to end up in a drama circle. I'm telling you, while you guys are junior high and high school, if you're a guy friends rock. I'm not saying don't have any friends that are girls, but have guy friends so that you can go and be a guy. We like to pick our noses. We like to play video games. We like to shoot potatoes at each other. We're guys. Girls don't do that stuff. Girls are weird. I don't get why they don't anyways. But same for you girls. You girls are going to need some friends that are girls. Okay? It's part of how we support each other. It's part of how we're friends. So I finally got another guy friend. He became my best friend. His name was Brady. And I'm going to kind of continue this story in just a little bit. But ultimately, I wanted to show you guys that throughout your school years, if you make a choice and a stand for God, you're going to have points in your life where you have to walk through a little bit of loneliness, okay? But here's why. It's because of the choice. So I'm going to let Aaron tell you guys about the choice. Okay, here we go.
Which was?
For Jesus.
Okay. So we have a perfect example of what a real friendship is. And that perfect example is Jesus. Not in just a silly, bubbly way that we learned in kids' church, but in a more serious and fulfilling way. If you go back to Proverbs 18:24, there is a part that says, A friend sticks closer than a brother. This tells us of a friend, but in the example of Jesus, Jesus will never leave us, and most importantly, he will love us like a true friend. We can also see this in how he lived and died. In John 15:13-15, verse 13 says, Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. Verse 14, you are my friends if you do whatever I command you. Verse 15, no longer do I call you servants, For a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you my friends. For all things I heard from my Father, I have made known to you. The reason those verses are so important is because it shows us the greatest love a friend could ever offer is to give up their life. And what did Jesus do for us on the cross?
He gave up his life.
And so verse 14, verse 14 shows how friends are there for one another, to help another in times of need.
Yeah.
This also shows how friends love, because one of the definitions of love is to share and rejoice in truth.
Yeah.
Then again, if we go back to the definition of friend, to be a friend is to know the other and to have a like affection. Jesus knew us even before we were born, and he loves us unconditionally, so like that a friend must know a friend to be a friend. And a friend must have like connection with the other. No, not only that, but we need to remember God never changes. And like that, as a friend, you should stay consistent and follow the greatest example.
Yeah.
So looking to the future, as of now, we eventually hope to move out, hopefully, and you'll go away from your family. You'll go to school, work, possibly even create a family of your own. You'll be surrounded by friends, and whether you like it or not, the people that you choose to surround yourself with will have a major influence on your life. Like Pastor David says, show me your friends, and I'll show you who you become. Building real friendships requires us to consistently be there for each other. It also requires us to be honest in what we say and how we should hold ourselves.
Yeah. I love that. Just to reiterate that, Pastor David is another friend that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But I love what he says. Show me who your friends are, and I'll show you who you become. Show me who your friends are, and I'll show you who you're going to become. It's so true, you guys. Do you want to know why I lost these friends through my life? And I didn't lose them as far as them being friends. No, I was still able to talk to Matt, the first friend that I really, really had in elementary school and into 7th grade, who walked away from me because he chose a lifestyle. Zach, and my other friends, Zach, Bryson, Michael, all of these guys were really, really amazing friends of mine, and they made a choice. And so did I. I had to separate myself, because had I continued to have those guys be my friends, guess who I'd have become?
Not one of them.
Probably not a pastor. I probably would have become a person of the world. Does that mean that God couldn't have redeemed me and eventually I become a pastor? No, that could happen. But why in the world would I want to make that choice when instead I get to stand up here before you guys knowing that I did the best that I could? I didn't do it all perfect. I made so many mistakes, it's ridiculous. But I did my best. And I didn't go into the party life. Never even had a sip of alcohol. Along with that, I've never tried any kind of smoke, from a cigarette or weed or any other thing that there is that you can suck into your lungs and then exhale. I've never done any of, well, oxygen. Yeah, that's true. I've been on oxygen my whole life. Sorry. Goob. So Brady became my best friend my senior year. Now here's what's cool about that. I want to read Proverbs 17:17 real quick, you guys. It says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born from a time of adversity. Okay? I was really walking through a time of adversity because I was lonely. I really wanted a guy friend. Now here's what's cool. Brady, I'd known Brady since 7th grade. But all of a sudden when we grow up, he'd never really been saved. But he'd always been a good guy. Now, all of a sudden, Brady and I start getting pretty close with each other. I invite Brady to come to church, and the guy gets radically saved by God. Completely changes his life. So I became a friend that's like a brother to Brady, because Brady needed to know Jesus Christ. Then Brady became a friend to me because I was lonely and I needed a guy that was going to kind of push me along in my relationship and my walk with Christ. God brings these things together. It doesn't mean we don't walk through a time of loneliness. And in that time of loneliness, I learned how to walk with God and walk away from sin. So don't think that you're not going to walk through times of loneliness if you want to choose God. Because if you want to choose God, you're going to have to choose Him and walk away from some people that you don't want to walk away from because you're close to Him. I've done the same thing, you guys. But through those choices, I'm standing where I'm at right now, and I have the testimony that I have because I made a choice. And that choice wasn't with the masses. Because the masses of human beings in the world choose the way that my friends all did. Now, I don't hold that against them. I love them with all of my heart. And I'm praying that each and every one of them remembers the truth and remembers where real love comes from at some point. But unfortunately, I believe that all of my friends from back in 7th grade and when I was a freshman in high school, I fear that all of them feel like they've done too much and they couldn't come back to God because God would never forgive them. And my prayer is against that because God would forgive them. And any time that I get to see them in life, I remind them that I still love them because I do my best to represent His love for them. I'm still a friend to these guys whenever I get to see them. Now Brady, here's what's sad about Brady for me. Brady was my best friend only for, again, a short time. A short time frame we got to be in each other's lives. Because I got engaged. And when I got engaged to Nicole, actually it was just when I started dating. I started dating Nicole, and all of a sudden he walked out of my life. Not like totally, not physically, because physically I started dating Nicole a month before we were both going to college. He had actually transferred from OIT to go down to college in Texas with me, where we were going to be roommates. We're best friends. We're inseparable. We're hanging out all the time. I even got him a job at Big 5 with me so that we could work Big 5 together. He was my best friend. Then I started dating a girl, and all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but he just like separated himself from me, pulled away. He wouldn't talk to me anymore. So we go down to college. We're still roommates. We were roommates the whole year. I tried to confront the situation and what was going on, and between the both of us, it just kind of turned into a yelling match.
Really?
Both of us were mad at each other. It was unfortunate what ended up happening, but here's what's cool, is even through that, my buddy Brady texted me a few years later because we had some separation in life. Quite frankly, he was still a friend enough, even though he'd separated himself, that a year later, after he separated himself from me, he was in my wedding. He's in my wedding photos. Because he was still my friend, and I was still going to be a friend to him. And then several years later, a couple of years later, he texts me one day out of the blue. He says, "Hey man, I'm in chapel down in school here in Texas, and I've just been praying, and I want you to know I love you. I love you, and you mean the world to me, and I just thank you for the influence you had in my life. I appreciate you a lot, man. I want you to know that there's nothing bad between us. I fixed it, and I'm sorry, and I love you." Now, Brady and I don't talk anymore. He lives in Medford, I think. But he's still my friend. Now, what was cool with that is then all of a sudden I get my lifelong friend. But here's the thing with a lifelong friend. You have to go home and solve the problem with the bills with a lifelong friend. You have to go home and you have to clean the house with a lifelong friend. You have to go home and you have to raise kids with a lifelong friend. All of this is great and it's wonderful, but it also creates a need to have friends outside of just your lifelong friend. So, guess who was born out of a time of adversity for me? His name was David DeFlippo. David DeFlippo became my best friend because of wedding photos and turkey hunting. He took my wedding photos. Now, I never would have been friends with David when we were young. Ever. First off, he was several years older than me. And second off, he liked the same girl I did. We were rivals. But we were nice rivals. We were cordial with each other. We were acquaintances. I was respectful to him. He was respectful to me. But we knew there was a challenge. We shook hands in our minds and said, "May the best man win." Never mind. David is my best friend. He's taken our wedding photos. He's the same kind of a characteristic. He's read these scriptures, and his whole goal is to be a friend. His whole goal in life is to be a friend. And so, even though there's whatever that was, as far as the dramaticism, I think that's a word. It's a powerful word. It needs to be a word anyways. The dramaticism that exists through 7th grade all the way to 12th grade between boys and girls, and friends, and family. It's just a mess. I promise you guys that later on in life you look back at it and you go, "Geez, I was a drama queen. And I'm a guy." Anyways, David and he's taking my wedding photos, and I'm like, "Bro, I got to pay you back. We got to pay." He's like, "You're not paying me a dime. I don't want your money." And I'm like, "I know how expensive these are. I've got to pay you something." He's like, "You're not paying me." And I said, "Well, let me ask you this then. Have you ever gone turkey hunting?" "No, I've never been hunting." "Well, can I take you hunting?" "Well, yeah, I'll take that as payment." And from that hunting trip that we went on several months later in the springtime, Brady and I became best friends, and our connection even still is hunting. I meant David. Sorry. Our connection, I'm getting all my best friends mixed up. Our connection even still is turkey hunting and you guys. David and I love you guys to death.
Love you too.
We love you guys with all of our hearts. It's the reason we're doing what we're doing, and it's the reason I believe that God has partnered us together. And on top of that, I also think that David and I were meant to put on boxing gloves every once in a while and push each other through life, because both of us needed to learn how to become stronger men. And what I mean by stronger men is more sensitive-hearted, loving men, because it got pretty loud in David's office every once in a while. Not my voice. Okay, yeah, my voice. I'm really loud. So here's what I want to do real quick with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end this. I guess before we end, do you have any thoughts, Aaron?
Yeah, so one thought that I have, and I think it's something that we need to remember out of the last 3 sermons that we had, is to know Jesus and to have a relationship with Him is how we know what true love, true family, and what a real friendship looks like.
Yeah. There's a scripture in Proverbs that says it's Proverbs 27:17. It says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another person." Okay? How do you sharpen something with a sharpener? How do you sharpen a knife with a sharpener? You use a sharpener, and what do? Do you whack it as hard as you can against the other piece? Does that make it sharper? You slide it, right? So here's the thing. Here's what I want to leave you guys with tonight, okay? Shh. This is going to be really good. We are tempted through life many times, and David and I faced this with one another. All of my friends and I faced this, but especially David and I. David and I became friends in many ways because God brought us together as friends. And the whole goal with that was so that we could sharpen each other. And the problem was, every once in a while, we got irritated enough, we just wanted to slam against each other like we were in a medieval sword fight. But we had to learn how to sharpen one another rather than fight one another. Okay? So as you guys go through life, first off, your goal needs to be a thermostat and not a thermometer. Don't take the temperature of another person. Don't take the temperature of the room and what's going on. Change the atmosphere. Change the temperature of the room. Be a person that is so firm in your standards and your identity that you refuse to to go any other direction than right toward Him. Doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. It doesn't mean that some dirt's not going to hit you in the face every once in a while, because we live in a world where that happens. But if you make your choice for God, then I promise you it will be worth it. And on top of it, you'll be able to actually be an influence to your friends, a good influence to your friends, rather than having your friends influence you negatively through life, costing you many different things. Imagine this. Here's what happens when we stay partnered to friends that are into the party life. When we stay partnered to friends that are into the drugs, alcohol, all of that kind of stuff, but hey, they've been our bestie forever, and so we've got to stick with them because of loyalty and stuff like that. Here's the deal. When you guys choose to stay loyal to that person in partnership rather than loyal to Christ in partnership, first off, you can't be an influence on that person's life ever, because you follow that person and they follow you, and you all make mistakes together. So no one can respect the other person because all of you are the same. At some point in time, it comes down to it, and you look at your friend and say, "Why do you do that stuff, man?" And they go, "Shut up, you do the same thing." They wouldn't be able to say that to you if you didn't do the same thing. Because if you walked up to them in love and you said, "Man, you know you're made for more than that? You don't have to do that stuff." "I know, man, but I don't know how not to." And here you are being a goody-goody. "Man, I'm not a goody-goody. I just made a choice, and so did you. But don't you understand that there's redemption for you? Don't you understand that Christ doesn't care what you've done? Christ cares about where you're going to go from here. Christ has provided forgiveness for your heart, and all you have to do is live for Him." You guys don't get to have that in people's lives if you follow each other through life. I'm telling you guys right now, it is absolutely worth it to be the thermostat in the room and not the thermometer. Choose Christ and change your friends. Don't let your friends change you into somebody you don't get to be. Because the problem is, at some point, if you guys have dreams at some point of having a family, you follow your friends, become a drug addict, and sleep around, and you might have a family, all right, with multiple different people, multiple different kids. Life gets hard, you guys. And again, people make mistakes. But do your best to be the person that tries to bring people out of their mistakes so that they can live for Him and see what His redemption does for their life. Okay? Do you guys got that?
Yeah.
You with me?
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to go ahead and pray and end our time tonight. Everybody give Aaron a hand real quick.